Alright guys, I have a really fun bicycle restoration project for you in this video because right in front of me, one of the bike is gonna get stripped and one of the bike is gonna get upgraded. Okay, so on my right side is a Nishiki Sport. This is a vintage bike, 1999. 1989 is a year model. It's got a beautiful lugged chromoly steel 4030, so nothing special, it's just the steel. However, the paint scheme is really cool. This paint scheme is Nishiki's attempt at copying Bianchi's Celeste, like baby blue, kind of a dual tone paint. So this one you can see it's kind of dual tone as well. It's got that shiny pearl color inside, but this green is slightly darker green. And obviously the previous owner put a kind of Bianchi colored bar tape over here, and so you can compare kind of the color what Nishiki did. Okay, so the Sport is their kind of like mid-range model that they came out back in the days. This is Nishiki Performance Equip Sport, and basically a mid-range component road bike for back in the day, and features the Shimano SIS indexed 7-speed shifter, rear derailleur, and rear cassette on the back. In the front, it's a double front crankset. Okay, so I think it's a perfect size for me. That's why I'm gonna be stripping the other bike, which I obtained for a really special price of free. Someone gave it to me to restore because the bike was in pretty rough shape. And I actually test rode the bike. Unfortunately, it's not my size. Okay, this bike is like 62 centimeters. It's 10 centimeters too big for me. The components on here, this is a 1996 year model, so it's slightly more modern, despite the fact it's still got a threaded headset. It's got aluminum handlebars. This one from the 80s comes with a steel handlebar, a steel seat post. This one is all aluminum, so aluminum seat post, aluminum handlebar, so slightly upgraded, and aluminum front fork. It is nice. It is quite a lot lighter than the Nishiki, and it features again the same 7-speed setup. This is a 3x7 speed, so this bike is kind of a specialized entry level group set. On this bike's model is just called A1 Road. So nothing fancy, nothing special on this bike. However, I really dig the more modern shifter on here, because I just cannot get used to the thumb shifter here. Even though this thumb shifter shifts super smooth, it's just slower to work with. And also the brake on here is terrible. Okay, this single pivot caliper brake, center pivot caliper brake is just as bad as a cantilever brakes. So the brake on here is actually RSX caliper brake. It's dual pivot, so slightly more modern, and it works fine. So paired with this shifter system, I should be able to make it work on here. And that's what I'm gonna do in this video. I'm gonna be stripping the Specialized and putting all the components that I want from the Specialized over here to the Nishiki Sport. I have new cables, I have new shifter cables, brake cables, housing, and basically I'm gonna swap the parts there, put it here. Any other parts that I swap out, I might just sell it, resell it, or maybe put it back on here and then maybe resell this bike for someone who is this size and wants a really budget built bike that works well. Okay, nothing wrong with this bike. It's a little rusty, however it rides super smooth, doesn't make any noise, and shifts super smooth, so I know the components are good. All right, so with all those out of the way, and we should start with the restoration project, but this is the prelude on what I'm going to be doing with those both bikes. Okay, so obviously this video is going to be sectioned. Next section, I'm going to be taking apart most of the components that I'm going to be replacing on the old bike, and also take apart the components that I'm going to be putting on the new bike on the Specialized. So I'll see you in the next section. All right, guys, so now we're inside our small living room, and I have the Nishiki in front of me. So what I'm going to remove from the Nishiki, I'm just going to tell you guys that then I'm going to go into a time-lapse mode while I'm removing all the parts. Mainly, I want to replace the brakes. Those single pivot center mount caliper brakes are horrible. So I'm going to get those removed. The seat and hopefully the seat post, I hope the other seat post actually the same size, so I can just replace the seat post altogether. Otherwise, I'm going to replace the seat for sure. This seat is really, really old, okay? The SIS thumb shifters, this one is interestingly not mounted over here, and they didn't provide in 1989, okay? They didn't provide a mounting point for thumb shifters. Pretty forward thinking. They actually moved the thing here with a bracket. So I'm going to remove those thumb shifters, even though they're really nice Shimano SIS thumb shifters, extremely precise. I don't like thumb shifters, so again, I'm going to hopefully try to resell those parts as vintage, you know, parts for people who want to restore their vintage bikes. And also I'm going to try to remove the obviously the handlebar. I'm going to replace it with the one on the Specialized. It's aluminum, it's lighter. This one is steel. With that, the die comp, or I don't know how you say it, but dia comp, those brakes are also not very good, and they are very sluggish, hard to turn. So I'm going to have those replaced with the Shimano 7-speed like modern style shifters, handlebar shifters, okay? And obviously, if I can try to remove this little extra piece of steel that's for mounting the old lights and stuff, I'm going to remove that. And of course, the front brakes. And I think that's pretty much all the parts I want to replace. I might just directly replace the whole handlebar with the quill stem, because this quill stem is actually too short. This is more for like a hybrid bike setup with a very short quill stem. So I'm going to replace all together, see if it's possible. After I remove those parts, we're going to bring the Specialized back in here, and I'm going to start removing the parts on the Specialized, okay? So let's get started, and the next section is going to be a time lapse, so bear with me. Alright guys, so as you can see, I've removed all the components that I actually want to replace and do a small upgrade. And without any issue, it's actually super easy to service. Those old bikes, compared to the disc brake, hydraulic disc brake version of those modern bikes, much easier to service. And the parts are readily available. So if you do find one vintage bike, you know, locally for sale, and you really love the look of the vintage bikes, by all means buy it. And restoration project should not be that terrible, and the parts again are for the most part very affordable, so you should be able to do it, okay? As you can see, brakes are gone, front handlebar and the quill stem is gone. I want to try that new quill stem on the Specialized. And also rear derailleur is gone. I removed the chain. We're gonna be using new chains for the new setup. The only thing I'm not gonna be able to replace for now is the seat post. The seat post is vintage. It's a 26 millimeter, which after 90s, most companies already switched to thicker 27.2 millimeter seat posts. This one is still using 26. And it's one of those really old school steel style, that's all steel, super heavy. So I might just find a cheap aluminum all-in-one seat post that's in 26. Most likely you're gonna find it on AliExpress, which is a Chinese website selling a lot of aftermarket bicycle parts. So definitely go there and check it out, or I may actually post a link down below where you can get it. But yes, if we can get this replaced, I think we can actually shave quite a lot of weight
out of this bike with the new components, okay? So with this out of the way, I'm gonna leave this bike aside. It's pretty much ready to taking the new components. We're gonna actually start stripping off the Specialized. And for that, I'm also gonna be using a time-lapse mode. Pretty much all the components I removed here, I actually want to use the components from the Specialized. So I did a lot of things off camera after I removed all the components because I was trying to assess which component works for the Nishiki and which component doesn't work. Turns out most of the components is gonna work, and to be honest, even though this is aluminum and lighter, it is very wide because this is set up for a 62 centimeter frame. So I'm gonna keep it there, and I'm gonna sell this as a project bike with a complete frame, with a complete wheel set, and most of the group sets already intact. This is a 7-speed triple. So whoever is gonna buy this, all they need is a 7-speed rear derailleur and 7-speed 3x7 front shifter. They can either convert this to a flat bar or they can use a 3x7 speed shifter, which I think the Shimano Tourney nowadays still offers an STI 7-speed setup. So they can use the Tourney shifter for the front if they want to keep it as a job bar road bike. If they want to convert to a flat bar, super easy, and shifters are more widely available for flat bars as opposed to the job bar shifters. So it'll be easier to convert to a flat bar, okay? You can see I removed the seat. Basically, I already put the seat here. And most of the parts I kept intact. Not sure if you guys can see. I did not replace the front quill stem and the job bar because, again, this is a smaller size bike, so it's got a smaller size job bar, and I don't want to kind of mix and match them and make them doesn't look like, you know, it's a bike set up for the size, right? So that's all I'm gonna do. Stripped it, and we have all the components ready. I'm gonna show you guys one last thing that you need to take note if you're thinking about switching around, okay? Which is pertaining to the brakes, all right? So in front of me are a dual pivot caliper brake. This is a modern style with a recessed mounting screw right here. So all the bikes probably in the late 90s is gonna feature this kind of, or mid to late 90s, is gonna feature internal locking screw for the rear of the brake. And if you look over here, this one uses a traditional bolt with a nylon washer inside. So they have different mounting style. The older bikes use a external bolt, and the newer bike uses the recessed bolt. You can go to hardware store and get a traditional bolt that turns with a wrench instead of the recessed style. Recessed style you have to go on Amazon and buy. So really depends on what you need. If you're trying to get a dual pivot, getting a nice caliper brake for your old vintage bike, and your old vintage bike use one of those external mounts, it's very easy. You just take off the external or the internal mount bolt and just go to hardware store, get one that fits over here in the correct size. Ace Hardware usually have a abundance of screw sizes available. One of them is gonna be like this. You can mount this directly. You can mount your new brake to the old frame with the new bolt. Okay, so that's the only thing you need to, you know, take special note. Otherwise, if you're using modern components, you know, most of them is going to be very, very compatible, okay? Another thing to take note is even newer bikes is gonna have not those quill stem, but a threadless stem. Threadless stems, in my opinion, are slightly easier to service, but don't be afraid of the threaded stem. Those stems actually are better built and easier to adjust compared to the threadless stems. I actually quite like those threaded stems. They're bulletproof. Once you get them installed, they rarely need any kind of adjustments. The 89 Nishiki, I mean, it's almost like 30 years old. The threaded stem works perfect. It's like brand new, so it doesn't require any service if you don't get rain on or you keep them nice and dry. Okay, but that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna take the parts bike off because it has completed its mission, and it's gonna go to another new owner, and hopefully they have, hopefully they are the correct size for this bike, because literally I got this for barely nothing, and the components I want, I already took it off, and it's still a very well designed, very lightweight aluminum bike for a very large sized person, right? So yeah, so I'm gonna leave it aside, and the next section of the video, we are just gonna be installing all the components that we removed from here to the new Nishiki Sport.
All right, you guys know what? As I was cleaning the dual pivot caliper brakes from the Specialized, which is the modern bike, I tried to put it on the old bike, and I realized it's not gonna work because the modern bike has a very short bolt over here for the rear brake, and also a very short bolt for, this is the rear, this is the front. Both of them are like extremely short, and that creates issue with the vintage bike I have, because look at the vintage bike's bolt length. Okay, this is with washers. You guys can see it's like much longer. So because it's external mount, and obviously the total length is very similar. If you put the bolt here, you can see both of them is gonna situate at about the same distance. However, this one stops here and this one stops here. So I unfortunately am not able to put the dual pivot caliper brake on my Specialized, on my Nishiki. So unfortunately I have to put those brakes back. But I guess before I put them back, I'll just lubricate it really nicely on the springs and adjust the brake pads accordingly. Hopefully it's gonna give me slightly better performance after the adjustment. I might get new pads because those pads just doesn't look like they do much. Okay, so yeah, that's the unfortunate truth. With the restoration, and I also decided to put the old derailleur back on there because it just looks period correct and it works fantastic. So I'm not changing the rear derailleur as well. The only thing now I'm changing is the shifters, which definitely is a major factor for me as well. So once I get the shifter changed, I have to set up the triple to convert it into a double for the front crank, and then put on the new tapes and put on the new cables. And I think it should still be a really nice vintage bike, vintage chromoly bike that's got a very special paint on it. But at this stage, I want to tell you, since I did not expect this, that some components that I originally decided to replace from the Specialized, I am not replacing. Over here in my makeshift bench, I have all the tools I need to put on the new brake cables, the brake cable housing, and also to put on a brand new set of chain right here that I bought from Amazon. This is only like $9 for an 8-speed, super affordable, and it comes with a quick link, so very easy to service. So yeah, if you guys are interested, go on Amazon and get those MSN 8-speed chain compatible with 7-speed, 8-speed, and 6-speed. Okay, so for 9-speed, you can use 8,
but for 6, 7, and 8, you can all use the same chain for the purpose. This is a kind of grippy tape that I bought from AliExpress. This is like $3, $4, $5 shipped. Super affordable. If I'm buying this, you know, over here in the USA, it's probably gonna be at least 10 bucks, 12 bucks for a similar style with the venting holes and a dual layer. So pretty good value. And this is essential. So the old shifter, the 3x7 shifter from the Specialized, the rubber is completely messed up. It's very sticky, okay? Like once the rubber gets sticky, it's from, you know, abuse and sun exposure out for people who didn't take care of unfortunately didn't take care of the bike and the parts. It's out. I'm gonna take this out and I'm gonna put brand new silicone hoods on here. So the bike is gonna feel, the shifting, you know, lever is gonna feel really nice after the new hood being put on there. Again, this hood you can get on Amazon. I think they run about $7, $8. You can also get this from AliExpress. This one is, I believe, $3 shipped from China. So again, very affordable to restore the vintage bikes. And I think before I'm gonna use a new tape, I'm gonna try some leftover tape I have over here. If it's long enough, then I don't have to use this one. Because one tape is cut short. And if it's not long enough, then I'll just take this off, throw it away, and use the one I got from AliExpress. The shifter cables, I have a abundance of those shifter cables. I bought it on Amazon, again, super affordable. A whole pack, 2 brake cables, 2 brake cables, 4 shifter cables, and brake and shifter housing, and all the ferrets and ends that you need. It's $8. So yeah, affordable to restore old bikes, and we're gonna get started.
Alright guys, as you can see, the bicycle is fully restored. I took a ride yesterday and it was beautiful. Very smooth. No weird noise, and everything's tuned up. And this is a 700 by 23 tire, and even with that, the steel frame is excellent at absorbing bumps, so it was not a harsh ride at all with the tires pumped to 100 psi. So it's definitely going to be a fun bike if you're looking at the same model of the bicycle, and if you're thinking about restoring the bike. It doesn't take much efforts. Most of the parts are actually very durable. As you can see at the end of this video, I actually didn't replace most of the parts. The only thing I did is converting the thumb shifter, which works great, by the way, back into a modern shifting style hood shifters. The only thing I changed on this bike, or only thing that's not original, is instead of the thumb shifters, it's got the hood shifters. Those are from the Specialized A1 that you saw at the beginning of the video. I stripped that bike and I actually already sold the frame, and this is the only thing I kept and put on here. Not because the thumb shifter doesn't work, but I just like this modern style of shifting. With that, it shifts fantastic. The left side, or the front shifter, is actually a 3x, but it's very easy to convert it to a 2x, and right now it's working fantastic for a 2x setup. You just pretty much set your outer limiting screw on the large chainring, and you should have a fully functioning double setup over here. The original SIS shifter, it's bomb-proof, all steel, beautifully constructed. So is the chain rings. It's full steel and a slight rust, but it's mostly surface, so it doesn't affect use at all. This double shifter, again, works beautifully. no issue at all. Original pedal, it's aluminum, seems like. Yeah, the bike rides very smooth, and it's got a beautiful lugged construction using the 4030 chromoly steel. And this bike has that special blue tint sheen out of the green color, just like the Bianchi. But this is a Nishiki, and I believe this is made in Japan. I believe. I could be wrong, because this is kind of their mid-range to low to mid-range bicycle back in the days. So it could be made in Taiwan, or it could be made somewhere else. But it's, I mean, it's such a fun bike. Yesterday I took the ride, and it absorbed all the road vibrations quite well because of the chromoly construction. The steel just absorbs most of the bumps. Even though the tire is pumped at 100 psi, the ride does not feel harsh at all. Okay, and everything else works great. The seat is kind of comfortable. The handlebar, it's slightly small for me, but it still works. And the new grip, or the hood shifters, works actually very, very nice. Yeah, this bike is, I mean, it's being well preserved, so it doesn't take much efforts to restore this bike. So all I did is pretty much just tune up everything and redo the centering on the single pivot caliper brakes, and the all now works fantastic. The wheel set is slightly heavy, but still works nice and true. So really no issue at all on this bike, and I kind of dig it. So I would say it's another of my successful restoration project. So I'm gonna keep this bike, ride it for a while, and probably eventually just sell this and look for other bikes to restore and give them a second chance, and to have someone else enjoy those vintage bikes, because I think the vintage bikes does have, you know, the charm and the riding fun factor and the piece of history built into those frames and the components. Okay, so if you guys have any questions about restoring vintage bikes, feel free to ask me in the comments section down below. I always love a good discussion on the technical side of bike restoration, but for this, just enjoy this nicely restored Nishiki Sport. And yeah, so hopefully you guys found this video helpful, and if you did, please do hit the like button or subscribe to the channel. I will have more bicycle restoration videos coming out for you guys, so thanks again, and see you in the next video. Take care.